Well, bloody hell. I'm in shock. That was not a slip of the tongue when I said they killed Queen Victoria. They bloody killed Queen Victoria. They went on a killing blue blood rampage from the looks of it. Oh my God. Oh my God. King Charles needs to get that he needs to do toxicology reports on pretty much everyone in his family who's ever died since Queen Victoria. They're not mentioning anyone before Queen Victoria. But probably to do with a direct bloodline thing. I don't know, but my heart's pounding. It sounds like they poisoned her. I'm going to give you a quick rundown, right? 81 years old. She was doing perfectly fine. Everybody was, it's said by all reports that everybody was shocked at how fast she deteriorated and how quickly she died. No one was expecting it. Her death came out of the blue. She suddenly couldn't walk anymore. She couldn't use her legs anymore and had to use a wheelchair, and she was dazed and confused, having moments of lucidity and then delirium. And she had cataracts. She suddenly developed cataracts, and I've just looked it up. There's something called toxic cataracts. And apparently there's certain medications, and I've put a link in the description box below, of a whole pile of medications and substances that you can take that give you cataracts. And it's called toxic cataracts because you get the cataracts from taking poisons, basically. And it's everything from painkillers, antibiotics. There's a whole list that I've put there, a whole list that's in there. And they were giving her medication for what they said was rheumatism, which is why she was having trouble moving her legs. But I'm telling you now, as someone who's been poisoned 4 times, they poisoned Queen Victoria. That was not a slip of the tongue. I'd never ever considered her death to be anything suspicious because she was 81 and, you know, she was quite a large lady and stuff like that. I never looked at it. Now, the interesting thing about after she died is that there was a chief superintendent, police officer, dude, Fraser. He's obviously probably related to me, so maybe this is me helping pay off some karmic thing. But her superintendent, this is the interesting thing, while she was dying, not when she was dead, when she was dying, put the house that she was staying on in the Isle of Wight on lockdown. Servants weren't even allowed to leave the premises. Nobody was allowed to leave those premises until after the Queen died. He stopped everyone from coming in and out of that property. Nobody was allowed to leave. He put that entire property on lockdown until after she died. Why? And I think it's because they knew as she was dying, they were poisoning her, and the medication she had, like a doctor on hand who said, oh, you know, I knew she was unwell, but she refused to admit that she was unwell. Nobody believed that she was sick because her illness just came out of the blue. That even she didn't believe she was going to die, but they kept convinced, like the doctor, well, I knew she was unwell, I knew she was going to die, but she refused to see it. And she kept saying to her doctor and the people around her, am I well? Like she was expecting to recover from it, but all the people around her were poisoning her. Her doctor and that were poisoning her. Oh, it's arthritis. Oh, it's this or it's that, to cover up the fact they were poisoning her. And she got these toxic cataracts. And they kept talking about, you know, that she'd be sweating and she was dazed and confused and you're having moments of delirium, and that's someone being poisoned. I can't believe it. Now, the interesting thing is the Boer War was going on at the same time. You know how I keep saying how they you know, have to start wars, blame Russia, cause trouble in the Middle East, you know, target Russia, cause trouble in the Middle East, blame the Jews, yada yada, right? So the Boer War was happening. The Prince of Wales, they tried to assassinate him. She called it 1900 was her annus horribilis, because they shot the Prince of Wales. She had a daughter who had like incurable, is it her daughter? Like incurable breast cancer. She had blue bloods all around her, friends, family, children, grandchildren, all of that, coming down with incurable illnesses, coming down with like cancers, getting shot at all at the same time while they're trying to fight this war and start World War One. There's mention of Wilhelm in there. I think Wilhelm was by her side or something. But it's like it's all connected. It's all connected to the Teresa Lubienska. I apologise if I'm pronouncing her name wrong. It's all connected because that was connected to Wilhelm and Franz Ferdinand and all that. Because remember, Teresa was a countess. And she was put in the concentration camps and that. So the Boer War and the death of Queen Victoria sounds like it was them trying to start World War One. But see, the thing is, Queen Victoria survived 8 assassination attempts. I think it's 8. And she pretty much forgave every single one of them. History makes out like she was a hard bitch, but she was actually very forgiving and very understanding for a lot of things. And I think that they needed to get her out of the way so that they could start World War One. Just like they needed to get George out of the way to continue World War Two and get Charles out of the way to start World War Three. And that slip of the tongue about them killing Queen Victoria triggered that investigation. And when you click on the links in the description box below, it's going to blow your mind. They poisoned Queen Victoria. And if I was the king, I'd do a toxicology test on his mother, his father, Queen Victoria, and King George, and also himself. I just find it very interesting that Superintendent Fraser, I mean, he's bound to be a relative of mine, in which case maybe I'm helping pay off some karmic debt because he helped bloody kill Queen Victoria. He put the whole place, she was staying on the Isle of Wight when her illness came out of nowhere, to the point where if you read the articles, it shocked everyone. And to the point where even she didn't think she was dying. But they were trying to say, no, you're dying. And she's like, no, I'm not. No, you're dying. No, you're dying, Queen Victoria. No, I'm not. No, you're dying. Trust me, you're dying. That's kind of how it reads. And then he put the whole place on lockdown. And nobody was allowed to enter the property and no one was allowed to leave until after she was dead. But it was at the time when no one believed she was dying. They thought she was just sick. But if you look at all the symptoms she exhibited before she died, when this illness came out of nowhere, it looks like she was poisoned by her own people. And the cops were in on it, and her government were in on it, because they needed to start a world war. Sound familiar? Get the Queen out of the way to get to these world wars. They've been trying to get rid of the monarchy since Queen Victoria. I can't believe it. They've been trying to take over the banking system since then as well. Because they're stuck in a karmic loop. History keeps repeating because they keep getting away with murdering the royals, the bloodlines. And the Kaiser dropped everything to be by her side. Bloody hell. That one dream's just opened up a whole can of worms that's not looking good for the government, the royal doctors, the police force, the NHS. When you click on the second link, not the Wikipedia one, the second one, look at all the people in her life that died or were killed at the same time she was, because they're trying to exterminate the royal bloodlines. They're trying to get rid of any bloodline connected to the royal family, so that when they try to pull off the wiping out of humanity, thinks that only people like Donald Trump and von der Leyen and that are left, that only the Nazis are left, the Nazi bloodlines are left, the Aryan bloodline, you know, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, the Aryan bloodlines, nobody can take over. Which is why they're targeting Russia and the British Empire, because the Slavic bloodline, Vladimir Putin is related to King Charles through Prince Philip. And they're both Slavic. So this war in Ukraine is all a cover-up to kill off the British royal families. And, well, you know, the royal bloodlines. All the royal bloodlines. You know, like the Queen of Sweden. Remember all the controversies with the whole Epstein thing? The King of Norway is black. And the Boer War was in Africa, with the Afrikaans and all that, the whole Boer War thing with the extermination of the oh God, Zulu warriors, the Zulu nations and all that. Because remember, Queen Elizabeth is related to African royalty. So like my investigation into this whole thing, into the murder of Queen Elizabeth, has uncovered all of this explosive new information that is tracing it back to every war the Nazis have tried to start in order to wipe out royal bloodlines, because they are all connected to each other somewhere along the line. They're all related somewhere. Even I'm related to King Charles through Robert the Bruce, and they tried to kill me, which is why I'm desperately trying to save my sons. Because without the royal bloodlines, without anyone to take over these thrones, the Aryan race can rule it all. But they want you to think that the king's the bad guy. They want you to think that Vladdy's the bad guy. They want you to think the Jews are the bad guys. It's got nothing to do with them and everything to do with the Aryan race. Why do you think so many of their children are blonde-haired and blue-eyed? You know, their eugenics program, and why they took Madeleine McCann and all of that. because they see blonde-haired, blue-eyed as being perfect, like angelic. Pure. Now, obviously, they're not all blonde-haired and blue-eyed, but a lot of them are, because it's the Scandinavian, the Viking, the Germanic. That slip of the tongue's just opened up a whole Pandora's box for the king. My heart's pounding. I can't believe it. I can't believe I was right. I can't believe I was 100 gazillion% right. And how long they've been actually trying to pull off the extermination of the royal bloodlines of Great Britain, Europe, Africa. And it's their own prime ministers, it's their own police, it's their own military. They haven't been able to trust anyone this whole time. And they're sending innocent people out onto the battlefield to cover up the fact the whole plan is to destroy the royal bloodlines and exterminate the lowest first. The poor, the old, the infirm, the disabled, the young, the babies, the cannon fodder on the battlefield. And then once they're all gone, then they go in for the kill for the royal bloodlines, wipe them out, abolish them, whatever, and then they get to rule the world. With Donald Trump as emperor, the Trump bloodline, which I've been able to trace back to 1,000 years ago. And in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, Satan's doom, even though it's supposed to be Lucifer's doom, it talks about how Lucifer reigns for 1,000 years before him and the Gog and Magog, who are sent to start the wars against the innocent, are thrown back into the pits of sulphurous lakes in hell. And I thought, interesting. So then I looked to see how far back I could trace Trump's bloodline, and I traced it back to 1,000 years to Leif Erikson. It was 1,000 years when he invaded America. He was the one that started the invasion of the indigenous. You kind of can't really just say that you discovered a land when there were already people living there. It's called an occupation. Just like how the Americans occupied Japan after the war, so that they could put Japan in the perfect position to start trouble with, like your Koreas and your Chinas and all of that. But then allowed them to have access to all the technology that made Japan famous, because it's a quid pro quo. This for that. If you do this for us, we'll do that for you. I can't believe it. Which means Vladdy's cancer, they would have tried to kill him with the cancer, all of it. Oh my God, that slip of the tongue there. And I was too scared to post that dream. It took me over an hour to contemplate whether I should post that dream. And then I did. And now look what it's uncovered. So if I was the king, or if there's anyone listening connected to the king, they need to do a toxicology report. Check his hair. And don't let him eat or drink anything, because in becoming spellbound, when the Queen comes up on the big telly, she goes, "Rupert, asp." And, asp meaning poison. So are they trying to poison the king? Have they been poisoning the king? Did they give him the COVID vaccine to give him the cancer, and now they're slowly poisoning him to top him off? Because remember, I got stabbed in the shoulder with that massive lump, and my cat got cancer at the same time. So did they try to give me cancer? And they thought by slowly poisoning me it would finish me off? And when you look at the list of all the blue bloods and all the people connected to Queen Victoria that died just before or just after she did, or where they attempted, like with how the Prince of Wales was shot, just like with Franz Ferdinand and that's how long they've been trying to start these world wars for. And because the thing is, under British law, in order for Great Britain to go to war, the king has to get permission from the people in order to borrow the money to go to war. It's called a forced loan. But without the royal family, they can just go to war. They don't need. They just take the money from the taxpayer, even though they're supposed to take the vote to the right to go to war to a vote for the people. Parliament have to approach the people. The MPs go out to the people and say, can we have this war? But without the king or queen involved, they don't need to take out a loan. They just take it from the taxpayer, because then they, authoritarian. They just do what they want. The king or queen stops them from getting away with abuse of power, because the king or queen still has control over the royal mint, the treasury, the tax houses, the control of the money. And that's what they want. They want control of the money. And the only way they can control the money, because if you control the money, you control the food, you control the people. You control what everyone is allowed to have access to when you control the money. But if you remove the king or queen, there's no one standing in your way. Another reason why they've brought in cryptocurrency, to try and do away with the cash system. Because then they can just pull the rug out from your digital currency and leave you completely wiped out of finances. And leave everyone on the planet in poverty. Well, you can't pay your rent, you got to get out your house. You can't pay your mortgage, get out the house. And then they own everything. And then we become like living in an apocalyptic world, like in Mad Max and all that, where everyone's like having to build houses out of scraps and homeless encampments, and because nobody fights back, nobody stands up to them. They all just go along with it. They're all compliant. Oh, well, what can we do? Well, I don't know. There's nearly 8 billion of us and like 7 of them. Well, I'm trying to do something about it. It's like, well, if you're going to kill me off, I'm going to go down fighting. I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. So, yeah. So there you go. I've put it out there. Let's see if they mess with my phone today. Because the more they mess with my phone, the more God pulls the veil back. And it's going to get to the point where I'll end up finding evidence of, like, a photo or video of Starmer or Trump or someone literally with the smoking gun in their hand. It's getting to that point. Every time they mess with me, my phone, my social media, the veil gets pulled back more and more and more and more. So if I was the king, if there's anyone listening that has access to the king, I would recommend him getting toxicology reports done, and if he can, independent of royal doctors, the NHS, the police, the secret suit, like independent. It has to be someone you trust independently. even if you've got to use fake names and stuff. But I'm telling you now, since they haven't gone back any further than Queen Victoria. It started with Queen Victoria and my dream coats. They've been poisoning the British royal family in order to start world wars. So I'm going to go and have my breakfast now. I can't believe that slip of the tongue opened that Pandora's box. I feel so sorry for the king. He literally can't trust anyone. Well, he can trust me. Little old peasant, indigenous, barefoot me in my t-shirt and undies. He can trust me because I've risked everything for him and Vladimir Putin. I've earned my blue plaque on this flat for my contribution to science. They need to shut the whole CERN thing down. CERN are good for nothing. Right, so I'm going to go and have my breakfast now. Bloody hell. Now I knew why my heart was pounding. It's like my conscience knew what my subconscious was about to uncover. Right, I'm going to go. I'll speak to you later. Oof. Got to breathe now. Ka kite anō.